Welcome to the Digital Amateur Television Experimenters Night. This is VK7OTC, the club station of the Radio and Electronics Association of Southern Tasmania. Amateur radio is a worldwide hobby that has many different aspects. Digital television is just one of the many modes and areas that are covered. Maybe you're interested in becoming involved in the DATV Experimenters Nights. You realise that you do not have to be a radio amateur or need any ATV equipment to participate anywhere in the world. Also participate in the night by coming up to the Queen's Domain clubrooms. Yes, right on top of the Queen's Domain in the heritage-listed Coast Wireless Station. You never know, we might get you in front of the camera or behind doing one of the many roles during the night. We get underway with our program on a Wednesday night from 7:30 p.m. local time. We'll see you soon. This is VK7 OTC.
Okay, this is VK7OTC, the club station of the Radio and Electronics Association of Southern Tasmania with our ATV Experimenters Night, and we have a special Christmas edition. Here we are on the 25th of December 2019, and we have a few people up here who have escaped to play radio on this Christmas day, on Christmas night. So, and I understand we might be talking to someone a little bit later who received, I'm not sure for Christmas, but received just before Christmas a very nice device that he will tell us about in the not too distant future. Anyway, happy Christmas to everyone, and as we steam towards the 2020, and I don't really know where 2019 went. It seemed to disappear in a flurry. So I've had a very relaxing Christmas day with some friends from the street where we went to a very nice park and had a lunch, and then played a version of a Viking game, would you believe, called Cube. Which was a lot of fun, definitely a lot of fun. So what I might do is get Alan VK7KAJ, if you're out there in the club rooms, to come into the studio. Calling Mr. Alan VK7KAJ, if you'd like to make your way into the ATV studio. So I didn't get terribly much in the way of. Oh, here's the man.
What do you want?
What do you want? Well, you've got a few things to.
I brought my Christmas tree
to explain to us. You bought your Christmas tree.
Yep.
Now, explain to us, Alan, what this Christmas tree is all about. What I might do is I'll
Is that out? Or that?
No, that's going out. Unfortunately, when we do the chroma keying up here, I can't actually show you what's being chroma keyed. But what I can do though is I can zoom in here. There we go. This is Alan's.
It's going backwards.
Alan's Christmas tree. Now, what are we looking at here, Alan?
We're looking at a piece of rather old 10-pair direct burial external telephone cable, and I'm not sure that it's going to show up the colours.
Do we want to go over here?
Yeah.
We'll go over here, and we'll go back here. That's better. Oh, I'm not sure it's going to show up much better here.
Yeah.
Just let me turn on the
Seem to be
light.
lacking colours. It's an interesting.
You might have to explain it.
Okay. It's an interesting colour code.
I'll zoom out a bit. That's probably better.
Focus would be probably.
There we go. That's focused.
The modern colour code's based on blue, orange, green, brown and slate. The 5 colours, and then in various combinations with various mates they make up many pairs. This one predates that. I think I came in on the end of this. So you can actually see colours there now. And it's called a layer cable, and there's what is it, 4, 5, I think there's 5 different colour pairs. So there's an orange and white, there's a red and slate, I've got to get to the right spot, a brown and blue, a yellow and violet, and a black and green. And then we get back to red and slate again, and blue and brown, and then it repeats until it gets to this orange white one. And the cable was made in layers, so the inner layer is just 2 pair. So it starts at orange white and the next one's red and slate. The next layer's got 8 pairs on it, and it starts at the orange white. That's the important one, that's the key. And then it goes around in a layer, red grey or slate, I better say slate, blue brown, yellow violet and black green, and then it repeats the red grey. It doesn't repeat the orange and white, and it gets until it gets to the orange white, and then it stops. That happens to be 10 pairs. If there was another layer, it would start at orange white again, and then these other 4 pairs would just repeat until it gets round to the orange white one yet again. And I suspect that's going to be at 20 or 25 pairs. So yeah.
And what do they go up to? Like, do they just keep going at that?
Yeah, they just keep going forever until the cable finishes. It probably went up to a 960 pair cable, one of the really big trunk cables or whatever.
Oh, goodness. What's the diameter of that?
Yeah, somewhere about that, depending on the conductor size. And the discussion in there was also mentioned earlier that it looked fairly thick. External cables and internal to some degree came in 0.3, 0.5, 0.7, 0.9, and I think there was a 1 point something millimetre.
Ooh, okay.
Depending on how far the cable had to go and the required frequency response and various other things, losses. So yeah, I found it sitting in the ground in northern New South Wales in what is now a fire area, but I presume it had been buried lost many years ago and semi-buried, and a little bit was sticking out of the ground. I grabbed it and had a look at it and thought, that'll be interesting. I'll bring that in for the Wednesday lunchtime group, where there's some people of the vintage that would probably remember this.
Well, truly.
Because if you try looking for it on Google, it doesn't really exist.
Okay.
And all you ever see is blue, orange, green, brown, slate and variants thereof. So it's an old telephone cable.
And it makes a nice Christmas tree.
Oh, and my eyes are watering like mad.
Now, I understand you got a, it wasn't really a present at Christmas time, but it was a present just before Christmas time.
Yes, it may have been.
So
Yes.
what gift did you get?
As an analogy person who doesn't like any digital stuff, I now have an IC-9700. So yet another one. And all I can say is that the menus are revolting. Trying to remember where everything is and then how to change it from one band to the other and then change things on that, and don't even ask about putting tone in on repeater channels in memories. That's bizarre.
I have a wonderful picture of Rex and Larry sitting there with the menu open trying to set the offset.
Well, you don't have to set the offset, it automatically puts it in, unless you want to go to the so-called beacon repeater we have here, which is 147875 with a 600 kilohertz negative offset. And of course it doesn't do that automatically because it says you're too high in frequency to have a positive offset, which is a what's that word? Convention above 147 megs.
Yes, correct.
So that one's not too hard, but yeah, some of the other buttons and trying to remember where they all are, it doesn't work for an old person. It's probably a young person's set.
Well, you sounded pretty good the other day.
Yeah, it seems to work okay.
And I assume that's what you'll be using for 1296?
If I can run another piece of cable from my operating position out to where the antenna is,
Okay.
I will be doing it that way, and that means I'll have the what's the SG Labs 25 watt amp and preamp out at the antenna.
Okay.
And feed that from the 9700, allowing for the 3 dB loss in roughly 10 metres of RG213 at 1296. It should all work out, but I have thought of a problem in setting it up.
Okay.
To set the power, the drive level into that brick, you adjust the power till the little LED light on the brick goes green.
Yep.
Now, if I'm inside with several walls and doors between me and outside, how do I see this little green light?
You need an assistant.
So that's a problem I'm going to have to...
Tell me when it goes green. Oh, it's bright red. Oh, it's gone out.
It's gone too far, yes. Yes, so I've been trying to think of ringing myself on a phone with a video call with one phone underneath and another phone inside. Except I just realised before that I don't have the second phone. My wife has that in Melbourne. So I'll think of something.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So what does the 9700 put out on 23 centimetres?
Supposedly 10 watts.
Oh, okay. So a decent amount.
So it's 100, 70 and 10 on 270 and 23.
Yep. Okay.
And if it had 6 metres in it, it would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Not having 6 metres is a real pain. ICOM, you're a pain. I've never had ICOM gear in the past. This is the first ICOM I've ever had.
Right. Okay.
So we had a lot of ICOM stuff in Antarctica on the Australian stations down there.
Okay.
So
what sort
I
of
have used it.
What sort of stuff was it? Frequency and
HF, the M700 HF radios,
okay. Yep.
marine ones, except they were the international ones.
Yep.
And handhelds,
Okay.
various handhelds. The best one was the ICM12, which was a 12-channel VHF one, which we used on marine frequencies and our repeaters down there.
Okay.
It was probably the best because it had a knob on the top and you just twiddled the knob to the channel you wanted. There were no LCD displays, no menus, you just turned it on, picked the channel and worked.
That was it.
Later ones all had LCD displays, which tended to get a bit sluggish at -20 and -30.
Oh yeah.
And you just didn't know which channel you were on.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
and they were software driven, little buttons for up, down, instead of knobs.
So a case for simplicity was better in those sort of...
Simplicity was better and something you could operate with gloves on.
Yeah.
Okay. Push buttons are a bit harder with mittens, not gloves. So
With big fingers.
mittens don't have fingers.
Correct.
You have one thumb and one group of 4 fingers. So,
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Okay. All right.
So that's the interesting.
What other radio things have you been getting up to?
Not much.
Okay.
Don't think I've done anything.
We had a good roll up on the QSO party on Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning.
Sunday. Which one?
The QSO party.
Oh, 23 centimetres. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was not bad.
Yeah. There were about 8, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we were almost all hearing everybody. So there are a few.
Yes.
Tony and Taruna's problematic.
He's one of the difficult ones.
But I can hear him.
I have no trouble with him because from Blackman's Bay, I can hear him if I'm pointed at the mountain.
Yep.
Or if I point up the river,
Yep.
which is slightly northeast instead of northwest. We are very strong to each other, and Dave DM also. I can hear him off the mountain quite well, but if I point the beam up the river, it is much better.
Yeah. Because where I am, the thing about that is I'm getting the reflection off what I think's Mount Rumney off the back of the beam.
I don't know. You are ridiculously strong for where you are.
Yeah.
Compared to other people on the wrong side of Mount Nelson, to me.
Yep.
You're up a valley as well.
Correct. I'm actually pointing up at the.
You are stronger than some of the people who are sort of out in the open, not up a valley. It's rather weird.
And the thing is, I hear Dave and I hear Tony, and I think that's off of Mount Rumney. Without having to move anything. If I turn it around and point at Mount Rumney, Dave and Tony are 5.9 plus.
Okay. Yeah, well, that would tend to suggest you've got the right idea there.
So it's
And Dave, now that he's pointed at the water tower over on his side of the world, and he's on the wrong side of the ridge on the eastern shore to see Mount Wellington.
Correct.
So he's discovered a water tower that he can point to, and somehow that's a lot better to everybody.
Yeah.
So, interesting things happen.
The marvels of 23 centimetres.
Yeah. The other interesting thing that happens is that for me in Blackman's Bay, and I think I'm almost the most southerly one, I think there's one other that comes up occasionally, a lot of the stations to the north, well, they're all to the north, are rock solid steady, and then there'll be one that will have QSB on it but nobody else.
Yeah.
And that changes from week to week as to who it is. And
correct.
It's a bit weird.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. So
because Sunday I had QSB from Richard, and I had QSB from I think Dave and Tony.
Yeah.
But that was it. The rest of them were rock solid.
I think last Sunday Richard was the only one that had QSB. To me, but other weeks he'll be rock solid and steady, and somebody else will have it. So it's
fascinating,
bizarre.
absolutely fascinating. And it seems to actually improve. Oh, I didn't think I left that photo in, but anyway.
Oh, that's why it's on its side.
It's on its side. No, just ignore that. We've got the Sisters of Acousmatica in here as well. Sorry, I left them in there.
I can't read that.
Brum FM. So yes, we're just having a bit of a recap of the installation art from Sisters of Acousmatica at the Mooner Arts Centre. So they did a good job, and I did see on Facebook that they got the truck in to truck the ute out. No, hang on. What do I need to do here to turn that around? I thought it was that. Oh yeah, no, that's it. That's it. There's the operating position in the cab of the ute.
Yep.
They took the front seats out. So there's the. Actually, this photo will appear in the.
Looks like my ham shack at present.
Well, there you go. So, In radio we trust. There you go.
I was made an offer from my wife that I couldn't refuse. One of the desks in the bedroom, a corner desk, she didn't like it then. She said, it might work for you.
She was out of there in no time flat.
Yeah, but now all the stuff that I used to have stashed away is all over the floor. And
Right, okay.
so I've got to fix it up by the weekend before the in-laws arrive.
Work in progress.
Yeah, and also get that piece of coax run for $12.96.
Right.
And a lot of other things, make-up beds and this, that and the other.
Right, right. So you've got things planned.
Yep.
Very good. Very good indeed. Well, now stay here because we actually have during this last week, in the last couple of days, there was you're in there.
Yes, I know.
You're certainly in there.
I know. I'm still trying to work out what I did wrong for some of them.
Well, you would have got now. What we're talking about here, what we're actually talking about here, is the results, the provisional results for the Spring VHF UHF Field Day contest came out a couple of days ago on the 23rd. No, actually that's the 11th. It should be the 12th because it only came out on the 23rd of the 12th. But anyway, we did pretty well because you would have got one of these, which is a check report.
Yes.
That each person actually gets, and this is a little thing that the VKCL guy Mark comes up with, that spits out. Hang on, I'm looking for his name. CCV. No, AVV.
VK3.
Mike. VK3 AVV. Sorry. Let's turn that around. There we go. That's me trying to do a selfie.
You're on your ear, I think.
With
Been drinking.
Pip trying to do a radio show there. But you actually get a check log report.
Yep.
One of the things that is very handy here, there's a whole lot of things at the back, which is the issues, the errors with your log.
Yeah.
What the automatic checking found in your log. So in my case, there was one contact I did on 6 metres with Hayden, which was 015. He gave me 047, and the exchange was actually copied incorrectly. So it would have been checked with Hayden's. It wouldn't correlate with Hayden. So we stuffed up, I suspect, the numbers. That's what this is all about.
Suspecting that the 015, because that one's in brackets, it's
not the right.
Thinking that's the wrong one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but whether it's your
No. Well, I'd say it's my end.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah.
Which lost me 78 points. Which is
I
a
lost
bit of a pain in the bum.
52 for one with Richard ZBX.
Okay.
On 23 centimetres, and I'm blowed if I know what I did wrong.
Okay. And
I can't really check now because the written log that I had, I don't have anymore.
Right. So
anyway,
you get this check log, and it tells what it told us was there were 102 logs submitted. Now I counted 18 VK7s in this list. I didn't count Rex though, so I don't think Rex ended up putting a log in, which was a bit of a pain. But 18 in 102, we're not doing bad for VK7.
It's damn close to 20%.
Well and truly.
Tad less.
Now there was 205 other participating stations, so there were quite a lot of people who didn't put in a log.
Yes.
Which is a bit of a pain. There were 6,640 number of contacts logged, so logged contacts, and 4,245 of them were actually checked. So, which is not a bad number, given the number that was put in. So this tells you. It then goes through and tells you your actual bits and pieces. Exchange possibly offset, tells you a few other things. 3 bands logged incorrectly, 40 cross bands unresolved. So this is for the total. And 104 corrected worked locators. So there's a number of things that automatically get corrected in here as they go through. So
I know of one person that started operating and thought he was in one locator, and then he realised later that he was in the next one, and he changed, and I don't know what he did for his initial
What
ones.
the first ones were, yeah.
Right.
So
It's on the ferry to Bruny Island at present.
right, okay. So you get the check log. Everybody who participates gets a check log. You also, they give you the provisional results, which is a big chart, and I won't show you this, but for each of the sections, operator 24 hours, there was no VK7s. The single operator 8 hours, there were quite a number of them, all the way through. Some that did, like Richard's in here at 11,820, which is pretty reasonable. That's up there with the scores.
Should have another 52 points, except for that one I had with him. I don't know what we did wrong.
Then multi-operator 24 hours and 8 hours, the next two sections. And then there's a home operator, home station 8 hours, which Steve Honson was in there, so VK7SH, so that was good.
Probably be in that one.
With a few.
I think I'm, yeah.
Al Burke, yeah, Bob Grant, Al Allen.
11 out of 8. 11th out of 18, I think.
There you go. Ben, Paul Pruss, Vince, Henderson, and Andrew DeWater from up north. So I think we did pretty well. And this just gives you a bit of an idea. The state active stations per state. So the number of stations in VK7 was 44 that were actually active, but 19 of them submitted logs.
Oh.
Which which is a bit just a little bit disappointing. But anyway,
Looking at the other proportion.
like it's the highest. Apart from VK1, where there were 5 stations and there were 3 submitted logs.
ZL's pretty good. 8 and 1 log.
Yeah. But from our perspective, if you discount VK1, we had the highest participation rate,
Yep.
or the number based on the number of logs presented. The others in this report just go through from a state by state for all bands, and then go through each of the bands. And so it was pretty clear that VK7, most of our contacts were coming from within the state, which is what you'd expect.
Yeah.
So anyway, for those that participated, thank you, and I think we did a pretty good job. And given that there are very few, if any, VK7s in these logs normally, I think we did pretty well.
Yeah.
So good stuff. Now, what I might do is, can you go and grab for me the power supply with all the cables coming out?
All the extras.
All the extras. I thought I'd show you the latest in the resource tip shop find that was found a couple of days ago. This is first of all, I didn't know what I knew what it was, but I didn't know what it was used for. After doing a little bit of investigation, I found out that it has a bit of quite an interesting history. So
It's not light.
it's not light. This is the first thing that struck me was there are 4 fans on the front, and there are 4 fans on the back, and there are an absolute shed load of GPU, so graphics processor units, power supply cables coming out of here. There's one which is your ATX cable, which is your normal motherboard cable.
Yep.
So there's one motherboard, and the rest of them are 12 volt GPU cables, the yellow and black cables, a bunch of them, and then there is a whole bunch that are your hard disk cables, which have SATA and there we go, the black one.
Yeah.
They have a SATA connector on them, and they also have a a normal hard disk, and
So there's roughly one of those coming out of each one of the
Yep.
power supplies.
that's it.
And there are there are two of the GPU
Power supply.
power supplies out of each power supply.
Yep. So when I looked at this, and what was written on the top of it was
Oh, did you want the lid?
no, that's all right. Was $20 parts only. And I sort of looked at this and I went, well, it's obviously something to do with the PC because it has an ATX connector on it for a start. But there's only one of them, and there's a lot of 12 volt other cables on here. And the thing that jumped out at me on the label was 12 volts at 120 amps. And I thought, well, if I can get this working for $20, I've got a 12 volt 120 amp power supply. Although I'm always a bit dubious about this because you never quite know how much noise it puts out. But anyway, when I opened up the box, I started to find a litany of errors. So the very first issue I found was because the first thing I did was very gingerly put power on the IEC plug, which promptly blew the circuit breaker. Instantaneously, and I went, okay, so there is something wrong with this particular unit. When I opened it up, and I don't know whether we can zoom.
Where are you looking for?
Okay, I'm looking for this end, and I just need to focus. Okay, this is the IEC plug. It has a filter unit, EMI filter unit, which is that was a good sign. When that goes in there, what I noticed was there's a little bit of plastic that's been stuck onto this inductor just here, and it's one of the power filter inductors in here, and a little bit of plastic that's stuck on here, and this particular connector, which is the neutral coming in on the mains. Was hard up against that bit of plastic. So we'll just put it down. We'll zoom back out again. And so when I did, I then put the multimeter on the input here, and we've got it almost dead short. When I pull the little bit of plastic away from the neutral connector, dead short disappears. So the way that this has been built, I have to say, is to a price, not a quality.
Oh, that's a pity.
But then I started tracing out where the active and the neutral come in through the back of this IEC connector and go to each of the... Because what we're looking at is 4 switch mode power supplies. They're all exactly the same. There is some linkage in here between the power supplies, which I think is to do with the regulation. You regulate one based on the motherboard power supply, and that provides the regulation for all of the others. But when I started to actually trace the active and neutral coming out of this IEC connector, the first thing I noticed is the neutral goes into a bit of cable that is actually coloured yellow with a green tracer.
But that's also a red wire too.
That's also a red wire on the other side, which actually then goes to a red wire and a brown wire. And this one goes to a brown wire and also a yellow and green wire. And then when I looked at the actual board where they go down to, the neutral and the active on the boards are swapped over.
Right.
They actually alternate. Up here, they're in the top one here. You've got blue for neutral and brown for active, and then you go down below, and it's red for neutral and black for active. Once I had this out, I very carefully powered it up, and two of the power supplies on this side actually worked. They came up. The fan started up. I measured the voltage coming out of it. It's 12 and 5 and all the others that come out of it.
And that's the side that's got the...
Correct. Now, you need to bridge. There is a power switch in the ATX connector that you need to bridge to actually switch the power supply on. Once you bridge that, and some also need a load on the 5-volt side to start them regulating. Don't need in this case.
This is all stuff I've forgotten. Isn't it good?
Yeah. Now, and so the problem is the other side of this doesn't appear to work. The fans don't come on. There's no voltage coming out of it. I haven't been into this in a great deal of detail, but I suspect at least the one power supply that basically had the neutral shorting to this inductor, this input inductor. I think something's probably wrong with that particular power supply. At least I don't know what's wrong with the bottom one, but anyway, I'll very carefully take them apart because I do have to rewire these because that's just a death trap.
Green and yellow on a line.
Neutral. Mind you, the actual ground, it is, the first thing I checked was the actual ground is right, and it is the right coloured cable, and it does actually ground to the case.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, well at least that's grounded before I even go any further, just to make sure the safety ground's in there. But anyway, so for $20, I think I did okay.
Yeah.
But you have got to be kidding, the issues with this power supply. So we think, given it's 120 amps at 12 volts for all of them, it would be at least obviously 30 amps per unit. So 30 amps at 12 volts is still not nothing to sneeze at.
No.
So even if I only get these 2 units out of it, there's still 2 12 volt at 30 amp units. I'll investigate how I actually get this back to a couple of decent sized cables that can come out to some decent terminals or something along those lines. But anyway, that's now what's it used for? That was the next thing. There was a little label on the outside that said this is a power supply unit for your Bitcoin mining machine. And surprise, surprise, what Bitcoin mining used to do, they don't do it anymore because most of it's been found. But the Bitcoin mining applications used to run on the graphics processor units, and so what you would have was a PC with an extension bus to all of these graphics processing units that we use to process all of the Bitcoin mining applications. And so this was basically a power supply to power all of your GPUs and your PC board, that it could sit there mining and looking for Bitcoin all over the place. So absolutely fascinating. And it turned up, this is at the South Hobart Resource Tip Shop. So
your second home.
My second home. So the second bit of equipment that I'll go and get Alan to...
Is that say 16 or 18?
16.
Okay.
Yeah, 16.
So that's about 1 square millimetre.
Yeah. So I'll go and get Alan to grab the other box. You can take that one with you.
Oh yeah.
We won't have enough room. Now this other box didn't come from the Resource Tip Shop. It came from an equivalent location, which happened to be a dumpster in St John's Hospital that I walk past each day and look in to see what's there, what they throw out, because they throw out some interesting pieces of electronic equipment every so often. So I happened to be walking past and thought, oh, okay.
Are these the bits?
No, fantastic. That's great.
Just this one.
Just this one and that one as well. Now, this particular unit was sitting in the dumpster. It was sitting there with this pointed out there, and there's two decent power supplies, a fan and an IEC plug and fuse and switch, and a big top on it that had 4 slots, which looked like battery slots. And when I looked at the back of it and it actually said battery charger, I thought, okay, this is a battery charger. When we open it up, there are a couple of control units here that have got computer control units that obviously have regulation ICs that are on the back that go to these back heat sinks. There's a fan. There's a whole lot of 3 watt 50 3 ohm, 50 watt resistors that are screwed onto the base. I suspect these are discharging resistors, so they cycle the batteries and they need ways to discharge it. And then sitting on the inside, and I've actually already removed this, I just removed this just a while ago, is a 24 volt 10 amp switch mode power supply, a very nice one too, out of the US. 24 volts at 10.5 amps, complete with all of the ferrites around for the EMR rejection, but a very nice little 24 volt at 10 amps, so a 240 watt switch mode power supply. It's amazing what you find in a dumpster and what they throw out. So there are certainly some bits and pieces that which we can recover from this, even if it's only the IEC, the heat sinks and the resistors and the fan. There's still a fair bit of electronics and bits and pieces that we can actually use out of that, including a 24 volt at 10 amp power supply. So yeah, it's I did okay out of that one. There have been a number of other pieces of equipment that I have found in those dumpsters in St John's, which is a whole lot of surgical camera equipment, which was a fascinating find. Sony surgical camera equipment. So that was all just thrown out into the dumpster, and just phenomenal what they throw out. But anyway, that's my latest finds. That's getting a bit of a go tonight and pulling out the bits and pieces which we can actually use. So so there you go. Now, just a reminder, the 2020 VK7 amateur radio news roster has hit the amateur radio VK7 amateur radio news groups IO group. Now there are a few holes in the roster for HF rebroadcasters. So if you listen to the broadcast and you have HF capability, it would be wonderful if you could lend a hand with a few of them during the year, and we can fill some of those gaps. All that's involved is you need to feed obviously what comes out of 2 or 70 centimetres out on HF, and then take some callbacks at the end and then report them back in. So it's not terribly onerous, but that'd be great if you can, and email me if you have that capability and maybe can fill some of those gaps. Also, just a reminder, the WIA's released the Future of Amateur Radio concept, I suppose, program, and what the WIA is wanting to do and encouraging all amateurs, and that you don't have to be a member of the WIA here. Members of the WIA automatically become part of this program, but those members who aren't, or those amateurs who aren't members, we're encouraging everyone to become involved, and they've had a fantastic response from non-WIA members. I think there's 600 or so at the last count have registered for the actual program. Now, what the program is there'll be a series of information papers put out by the WIA in the groups and various groups on the future issues around our hobby of amateur radio, and also there'll be polls around these information papers to see which way the amateur radio community is feeling about these particular issues, and these issues are then fed back into the ACMA. The ACMA have actually asked the WIA to do this so that they have a mechanism to be able to take feedback. So fairly important program for the future of amateur radio. So I encourage everybody to become involved and to register for this particular program. So really important. Just lastly, also the WIA conference is here in about 5 months' time, in May. May the 8th to the 10th, and there's a whole program of activity going on. The theme is Antarctic Gateway, and we've got a whole bunch of things all organised for that particular weekend. The event website right at the moment has a security certificate problem that I've put in the request to get that updated, so you can't actually register right at the moment, unfortunately, but you can certainly have a look at the program on the WA website. And just a reminder for those people who are watching from outside of Tasmania, we have organised discounted fares and accommodation on the Spirit of Tasmania. So you can go to an exclusive WIA conference website to book for 2 weeks before and after the conference. There is also discounts available at the Best Western Hotel in Bathurst Street. You get $149 a night room rates. Now when I looked at those normal room rates, they're up around $200, so that's a pretty reasonable discount, and you can stay at the venue that the most of the conference actually occurs at, so that's pretty good. And the other news from the Spirit of Tasmania is we've organised permission from the ship's masters and also shipping operations to enable amateurs who travel on the Spirit to operate 6, 2 and 70 centimetre handhelds, so low power, on the Spirit for the month that the deal's in place. So you can operate some maritime mobile on the Spirit. So that's another incentive to take the boat and come over to Tasmania, have a bit of a look. There's we've done another loop. There's Pip and Julia on their side. Pip and myself on our side in the ute. Oh, there we go. There's Mount Wellington, lovely, shiny. That's what it was like today.
It was very good today.
It was very nice today. So anyway, wishing everybody season's greetings for this special DATV night, Christmas night, and thank you, Alan, for being a part of our special Christmas night broadcast.
I'll be in trouble later.
That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yep.
So and our next one is actually on the first day of 2020. Well, people are saying it's the first day of the new decade, and I'm not sure that that's right. I'm actually not sure that's right.
No, it's not. It's the same as the century argument, I think.
Correct. So we need another year, I think, before we can say that.
Yes. You can have lots of interesting arguments.
Right. Okay. But
I don't
anyway,
think anybody wins.
It'll be next year in the next one of these. So
the best way to look at it is if you do consider it's the first year of the new decade.
Yeah.
You can celebrate, and next year you can do it again.
Love it. I love that thinking. That's very good. So we'll head to our videos tonight. We've got a ham's night before Christmas, even though it's the Christmas night.
That's been squashed.
That's someone being very, very.
Or could have been stretched, I suppose.
Yes. So it's the ham's nights before Christmas. There's a little article on GPS spoofing. Using a hack RF, which I thought was an interesting video that's in there. So this is being able to spoof a GPS signal using a hack RF transceiver for those GPSs in the near vicinity. So this is a bit interesting. Walters and Stanton in the UK put out an IC-705 update. It is being released, at least in Japan, in March. So whether the rest of the world gets to see it somewhere around then, I'm not quite sure. I did contact Strictly Ham, and they've had no other information about its release. So it's coming out in March in Japan, but not sure about the rest of the world. Walters and Stanton also put out a very interesting little short video on the Elecraft AX1 antenna, which is an active antenna that they sell as part of their Elecraft range, which looks quite interesting. And we finish up with a explanation of quantum computing.
Oh, wow.
So I thought we'd finish off on a light note.
Yeah, that'll be light.
But
that'll be easy.
for those people who have heard lots about quantum computing and the fact that Google have actually recently done a calculation that they claim would have taken somewhere in the vicinity of 10,000 years for a standard.
Why am I thinking of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in this? Deep thought. Yes, I'm in deep thought now.
Yes, definitely. Brain the size of a planet, and you asked me to take out the garbage.
This is the answer. Yeah. But what is the question?
Let's build the Earth and find out.
Yes.
We know it's 42, but what was the question?
Yes, we need a quantum computer that nobody will understand the question.
So this is a little segment on which I've been told is a layman's explanation of quantum computing. So we can hang out for that one. A bit of a light subject to finish off on. So anyway, this is VK7OTC, the club station of the Radio and Electronics Association of Southern Tasmania, with our Christmas night edition, and we say 73s and 88s to all those people out there, and we'll catch you in 2020. 73.